let's just get to it. And boom, we are live. What's up, everybody? It's G Mr. Drew welcoming you to another episode of the Andrew Glowshevsky Experience. This is going to be episode 639. It's going to be another quick episode. What do I call it? Meow here? Something like that? What are we doing? I got a whole bunch of cat references. And I'm just going to be drawing a bunch of cats for no reason. Well, actually, it's just because I'm coming in mad late to this stream, and I only got like, maybe 3 hours if I'm lucky. So, you know how it goes. I only got 3 hours. I was like, am I even gonna jump on the stream? I'm already tired. But I was like, you know what? I've been needing to do a little bit of this cat study, and it's not gonna require that much it's not gonna require that much brain power, you know what I'm saying, to go ahead and work on this study. Dang, and I'm already learning stuff. That's crazy. That's crazy. This is something I've been needing to do, like, in the background. I'm working on some things on my side sketchbook. Not my main sketchbook, not this one. With the side sketchbook. And since I don't get enough time to really do like research and drawing while I work on that, or at the very least I get to work on it like 15 minutes at a time, research just really isn't a part of that sketchbook's whatever. It's more like just kind of draw with whatever time I have, right? But I've been working on some characters, and I was like, you know what, I really need to get a better understanding of what I'm doing here. Hmm. So, I figured this was the perfect opportunity to, just do a little bit of a study. And hopefully I won't have to, you know what I'm saying? Yo, Pixel, what's happening? My bad. Almost didn't see you there for a second. I was definitely not expecting anyone to show up on a late stream. I appreciate you. Oh damn, I didn't even blast this one out on the socials. Oh, nice. Yeah, I was writing, and then I kind of got done writing, and I was like, I still got some time left. So I was like, I want to do a short stream, but I really don't have any energy to, you know what I mean, do anything like monumental. But I was like, I've been working on my side sketchbook and working on some things, and I was like, oh, you know what, I can go ahead and like do a nice little quick 3-hour study. Forgive me, I'm blasting this one out to the world right now. Totally forgot to share it. You know, you never know who's on this late. You know what I'm saying? There we go. Alright, so now we got that one. Blast it out there. I'm good with all this. So yeah, I've been drawing in the other book, and I'm working on some things. And I was like, you know what? Let me just do a quick cat study. I just need to understand something real quick, considering I never really draw animals enough to really know their anatomy or how it works. And I don't need to do anything like too great. But I do kind of want to like understand all this stuff, or at least a few things, instead of too late watching a new Batman cartoon. Oh, there's a new Batman cartoon, huh? Yeah, it's been productive. You know, that's the only problem with writing, is that I don't stream it. I imagine that's got to be even more boring than an art stream, you know? Not even boring in a bad way, you know what I mean? Huh. What's the new Batman? I'm trying to think if I've seen any like commercials for it or something, or trailers. Like, is it another Bruce Timm thing? I think I remember. I don't know if that was like an animation or a movie, like an animated movie, or if it was like a new cartoon, like a new series. But I think like Bruce Timm was kind of like working on it. Are we focused? Yeah, I think so. You know, there's just something funny about the way. Oh wait, let's see what this is. Cape Crusader, yeah, I think that might be the one that I heard about. The 90s Batman style, that's the Bruce Timm thing. Made it a bit woke. Nice. Yeah, as long as they got like blimps in a red sky. That always encapsulated the old Batman, the old 90s Batman for me. As long as they have blimps in the sky and in a red sky. Yeah, well, I mean, there were plenty of people of color in the old cartoon. I mean, Lex Luthor, not that he was in Batman, but, you know, Bruce Timm also worked on the Superman joint. And Lex Luthor was a black dude. One of the best Lex Luthors that we got. And then there was Batman Beyond. It came out after those. Terry's girlfriend's best friend. That was a black chick, you know. But yeah, I wonder if they like race swapped characters, if that's like kind of what you mean. Which I don't feel. I don't think I feel any which way or another. You know what I mean? Like we got the what's her name? Michelle Pfeiffer. We got the Michelle Pfeiffer Catwoman, and then we got the I don't even know her name, but Lenny Kravitz's daughter, Catwoman. That was kind of like a race swap, but hey, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, but that just seems to be the way that things are going with not just Warner Brothers, but entertainment in general. You know, I've been talking about the next map that I'm going to be working on after I finish working on all the characters from the current map, where I'm still working, you know, on that one island, or, you know, that one continent that has all the islands next to it. And, you know, I still got like, I don't know, 4 or 5 characters to work on. As soon as I finish those characters, I'm going to jump onto the next map, which is going to have a ton of characters in it. Like if I have 400 characters, there's probably like 100 characters at the very least in this next map. So I'm going to be sitting there for a while, of course. And so I'm going to work out that map just like before, and then work out all the characters in that map just like I'd be doing. And I got a ton of you know, characters of color and all that stuff in there. You know, it's just everything I've worked on so far has been very like secluded parts of the map with not that many characters, even though I've already shown like a variety of characters and races and but they're still like mostly monster types. You know what I mean? Like there's also monster types that I've been working on, so it's like, you know what I mean? A pretty healthy balance so far. But yeah, in the next continent, whenever I get around to it next year sometime, or 2025 sometime, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, definitely gonna have a lot. Yeah, because I don't know if there's any Batman characters that are like racially necessary. I watched a Fat Man Beyond podcast episode, and Kevin Smith, the movie director, famously worked on Jay and Silent Bob movies, but also did a whole bunch of other comedies and things like that. Um, did a really good movie called Red State because he works mostly on comedies, but Red State was more, I don't know if it's horror, you know what I mean? But I remember watching it, and it was definitely nowhere near a comedy, but there's something that's neat and similar between comedy and horror that he was able to encapsulate that. That's what makes that's why I say like Jordan Peele when I was talking about him and his movies in a previous stream recently. I was saying like Jordan Peele has a really good horror movie creation vibe to him because he has that comedy background. So Kevin Smith is just another one. But Kevin Smith hosts this podcast called Fat Man Beyond. And he co-hosts it with Mark Bernardin. And I remember watching one of their episodes, like a year ago, 2 years ago, whenever it was. And someone had asked the question, or somehow they got on the topic of talking about, if making a black Batman was possible. You know what I mean? Like making, like a black Bruce Wayne. Like if Bruce Wayne could be racial swapped, And I was a little disappointed by his answer, you know what I'm saying? Ultimately, he said no. Like he was like, basically because Batman was created when he was created, and he, the Wayne family, Wayne Enterprise, the business and the corporation and everything represents like represents a moment in time that American history can relate to. Basically saying, and I'm ad-libbing here, but basically saying, Gotham, even though it's a fictitious city, is a city that's like set in America, and it's set to be like a New York or like a Chicago or like a New Jersey or like one of those bigger northern skyscraper type cities, and you know what I mean? So it's like one of those. And because the Wayne family kind of represents old money, meaning their family was in on a business, kind of like a Rockefeller, how he got into oil like really early in the game, and you know what I mean? So their family like blew up and got like, you know what I mean, the buku bucks, and they're like one of the richest families around. Like that whole thing, like that's what the Wayne family represents. And because America is still America, because Superman, for fighting for I don't even remember the saying at the moment, but it was like freedom, happiness, and the American way or something like that. And you know what I mean? So the American identity is still there. It's just like a couple of fictitious cities in the DC Comics world. So because the Wayne family represented old money, and even in the more recent movies with like Ben Affleck talking about how, the Waynes, when they came to the Americas, they were hunters. You know what I mean? They would sell furs and things like that in trade. You know what I mean? Like that type of old money where they were like the founders and settlers of the country. Applying that history to the fictitious Gotham, he Mark Bernardin ultimately said, no, you know what I mean? Like Bruce Wayne couldn't be racially swapped. He has to be a Caucasian. He has to be a white American. And you know what I mean? I was a little bit, you know, miffed by that take. You know, personally, I'm like, it's make believe. Just make it up. You know what I mean? Like if you were gonna work on a one-off, if you were gonna work on a one-shot, you know what I mean? Not work, because the story will have like many different writers on it, and one writer will start it, and then another writer will carry it until another writer carries it, and then you have like this one long story. If you shoot off like a one-shot, I don't see why like Mark Bernardin or anybody wouldn't be able to write a story where Bruce Wayne is a black man. You know what I mean? Just make believe it up. Like literally remake the entire history of what Gotham is. You know what I mean? So you know what I mean? I don't know how like racially locked in characters have to be, but yeah, and I wonder what you mean by they switched up their outfits. You know what I mean? Like they switch outfits all the time, and they'll switch. You know what I mean? Like make them different. So I kind of know what you mean. Like I remember the designs of the characters in I think it was called The Batman animation, where the biggest change was like they changed all of the villains, and they barely touched Batman's design, but all the villains were wildly different. But one of the most notable ones, the one that I always like stays with me, is the Joker's design in The Batman cartoon animation. Was like Joker had like the locks, and he was barefoot, and he kind of moved around a little bit more like acrobatically, you know what I mean? And you know, they really changed Joker's look, but I mean, it wasn't terrible. But yeah, they switched it up, so I can kind of see what you mean about like them uh, switching up characters and villains and stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, it could work in any way. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're working in make believe, you know, if you're working in fiction, you can make up whatever you want. And I think in that Mark Bernardin example that I'm talking about, like it would be more of a test on rewriting the history of Gotham, and you know, the Wayne family's comeuppance in that city, leading to the Batman storyline. You know what I mean? I mean, at that point, you can make it any race, and you could tell any story. And then the interesting parts would be, I mean, at least for us as the readers who've been reading of like a white Batman since forever. Um, I mean, it would just be like, yo, what's up with this black Batman story? You know what I mean? Like we have all these like alternate universes, and we have like, you know, Miles Morales and the whole Spider-Verse, and now we have, you know what I mean? Like we already have that going. Spider-Man is the biggest Marvel entity, while Batman is the biggest DC entity. If Spider-Man can can racially swap and be successful, if not more successful, then you know, given time, I don't see why the same thing couldn't happen for Batman. personally. You would just have to like rework, rework that whole world, but it's doable. Not as skin tight, form fitting. Oh, nice. Yeah, I'll have to like see some screenshots or something. I'll have to check that out. There'll probably be like some YouTube breakdowns or some breakdowns on YouTube since it's like new and people will be talking about it. I can maybe check those out. But yeah. Yeah, it was always just surprising to me to hear Mark say that, just because he's always pushing for that. You know what I mean? Pushing for the culture and all that. So when he was asked that question, I was like, oh man, he about to kill it. He about to make some stuff up, because he's really good at like kind of making up these, speaking on the entertainment industry, the current stories that are out there, and how like they could be better and things like that. Kind of like how I'll come on here and talk about how, like, you know, the Marvel movies all the way up to Endgame were like a singular vision, and that's why it was so successful, and why like Phase 4 kind of fell short of that success is because like it didn't have that singular vision. Too many cooks in the kitchen and all that stuff. Kind of put Phase 4 in this like weird place. Like Mark Bernardin probably like inspired me to think about things that way. You know what I mean? He's just like a brilliant writer, or a brilliant story maker. Like, he's a writer too, but as far as like what he does on that podcast, when they ask questions and he has to kind of like come up with things on the fly, like the things that he comes up with is like some of the best stuff you'll hear. Where so many people are upset with the entertainment industry and the direction of basically where everything's going, as far as like the comic book stuff and how it was cool but it's not cool no more. And you know what I mean, everybody just kind of wants it to get back to being cool again, and like, please someone come help us, you know what I mean? Like that whole thing, like listening to Mark Bernardin and his takes on things, they're just so cool, and his ideas are so awesome, where it's like, oh man, I'd love to see that. So yeah, needless to say, his like quick assessment of like, nah, there couldn't be a black Batman, or at the very least a black Bruce Wayne. I forget what the one character is in the Batman family. There's a kid, I think he's Lucius Fox's son. You know what I mean? Like something like that. And obviously Lucius Fox is, you know, black man, so he has a black son. And he gets like this kind of like almost Batman Beyondish type suit, but it's like black and it glows blue, almost like a Nightwing kind of costume. Where, you know, Batman Beyond, Terry McGinnis, his is black and red. I always thought that was going to be like an interesting thing if like Batman gets old and you have this whole current Bat family, and then Batman Beyond is one of my favorite creations to think about. You know what I'm saying? The story doesn't depend on them being a certain race, then it shouldn't be a big problem. because he's from Africa. Part of him. Growing up in Ireland, yep. Magneto has to be white. Right. Okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah. Right. And but still to the point that I was saying, like, yeah, you're right about the Magneto and Storm thing, and those resonate well with the audience because of the place in history and the people of like where they're from, Magneto and Storm and stuff like that. But to the point that I was saying, like, you can rewrite the history of the planet that those countries are in, that those people are citizens of, to be a completely different make-believe world that isn't the one that we currently live in, isn't even remotely close to it. You could just make up anything, you know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, if you're gonna tell like the those specific beats, then yeah, you need that. You're right. So yeah, ever since not to beat a dead horse, but ever since Mark Bernardin said that, and my immediate reaction was like, nah, you could just make up the whole thing. Like, you would have to make up pretty much everything from the ground up from that point again. You know what I mean? But all the story beats would still be the same, as far as like a corrupt Gotham or a corrupt city. You know what I mean? You just like kind of like race swap a few things here and there, and then boom, you got yourself that scenario. Oh yeah, ever since he said that, I was like, I think about it often. Where I was like, man, a world where that would be the setting would be so different. It may actually be worth working on. I'm a little too busy drawing cats right now, though. Exactly. Just give them, just rewrite everything. You know what I mean, from the ground up. Something that I was hoping, and I guess I can still hope for it, with the X-Men and Cyclops. I've never been a big Cyclops fan, like, just because I was never big into comics growing up. So my first, you know what I mean, like, of them. I've seen like the cartoon animation, but like by the time I was growing up, the X-Men, the animation was kind of like out, not available on cable television and all that stuff. You know what I mean? Because it was before the internet, and so I didn't really have like an impression of Cyclops from comics, the animation, or video games. Like, my first introduction to Cyclops, who really was the live action movies that came out in the 90s, in the late 90s. And you know what I mean, those movies kind of clown them pretty hard. So I was never the biggest Cyclops fan, even when I did start getting into comics and did start, like, you know what I mean, go back and watch the animation and all this stuff. And I'll be honest, I never really saw like any interest in that character. And if I ever ran into somebody who like was a fan of them, I would just like not really understand them. And then one day I forget like how or why I learned about it, but then I started learning about Cyclops. Yeah, it was a really bad introduction. But when I started learning about Cyclops, like the original Cyclops in the comics, as far as like when they, like way back in the day when he was created, when the X-Men were created, and they were like kind of fleshing out his story and all this other stuff, you find out like who his family is and all that stuff. It's like, and I'm not even talking about, I don't really know like his brother's name, like Havoc or something like that. Like I'm not even necessarily talking about them, or even like his kid child from a future alternate dimension, future trunk story, Cable. You know what I mean? Like even that, like Havoc and Cable are super cool. Love them. Don't get me wrong, but they never they were just cool for themselves. Like they never really helped me like really be like, yo, Cyclops is out here and he's crazy and his character is super dope. And I heard in the so I just never felt that way about him. I heard in the new animation on Disney Plus. I haven't seen it, but they say they do his character some pretty good justice. I'd be interested to see that because after I learned about like who his family is, what his background is, and everything like that, like I was like, you know what? Considering he's kind of like the leader of the X-Men, we need to be getting that new X-Men live action up and running somehow. Let's go Disney. And since he's the leader, like there's got to be a way to be able to like make him leader worthy. You know what I'm saying? Make it so that way he's not, not Wolverine's punching bag. Because that seems to be all that he is. He's just like this Boy Scout that's like Wolverine's punching bag. Because, the whole Jean Grey love triangle thing going on. And it's like, oh man. Like, I barely know the story, but like his dad, like his story has something to do with like a plane crash and his family, and he thinks his family dies, and he thinks he's the only survivor from the plane crash, but like that's when we learn, I think, more or less that's when we learn about like his family kind of survived, and his dad became like a space pirate, kind of like the Guardians of the Galaxy. His dad's just out there space pirating around after surviving the crash. Uh, his brother Havoc survives it somehow, and you know what I mean. They're separated, but then obviously they run back into each other, and they got like similar powers, but you know what I mean. Not really. Like they're both mutants, and they kind of both get their power from the same place. I don't really know about the mom, but then like I said, the whole Cable thing, and then personally, my whole thing with Cyclops, and I think it would add to his character, is I don't know if there's ever a story told about like the beginning of his powers. You know what I mean? Like at least in the mutant mythos, the Marvel mutant mythos, it's all about like puberty, and when they're going through puberty, that's when like for a majority of the mutants, that's when they get their powers, and that's when the powers kind of like come out. And I'm always like, I get that Cyclops gets his Cyclops goggle, and that helps him control his beams. It lets him open up his eyes without shooting the beams. But I'm like, there had to be a moment when he didn't have eyes that were shooting beams. And then he had to have the moment when his eyes first started shooting beams. And the only way he could stop it is by closing his eyes. And I can only imagine what it would be like for like a normal kid growing up a normal life, and then all of a sudden he's shooting lasers out of his eyes. in any and every direction. And like, and his goggles that he has, it actually controls the beam. That's why like his goggle is shaped the way it is, and it like kind of controls the beam, so it shoots out like a, like, you know what I mean, like how we know how it shoots out. It shoots out, you know what I mean, like a flat plane of laser. And then he could like kind of adjust it, where he could like turn it up like volume, and then be like shooting out like, you know what I mean, basically fire out of his face. I'm like, so if that's how powerful the goggles are, and they're still holding back his power, I'm like, I want to see the scene where Cyclops, one, he's from a family that his whole family died in a crash. So he must be like an orphan of some sort, or being raised in a different family somewhere. You know what I mean? He's got to be going through puberty at some point. He's probably in school. You know what I mean? So there's that. So he's like in a public place, and then all of a sudden, like, his eyes just start shooting fire, and he doesn't know who, what, when, where, why, or how it's happening. The X-Men don't exist at that point. You know what I mean? So it's not like there's gonna be like a mutant team to swoop in and help him immediately. You know what I mean? Like Charles Xavier might be able to swoop in first or second or third, but it's like ain't nobody gonna be able to like help him out. So I'm like, where's where's the story where Cyclops gets his powers? I and I always imagine it's one of the most destructive things ever. I mean, just that sort of drama and setting, and he ultimately ends up becoming the leader of the X-Men. You know what I mean? And then going around helping other mutants and things like that, and then becomes the guy that we know. It's like, okay, so that's what's up. But I don't know if we ever see like the thing, because I even remember when they showed like the younger version of Cyclops in the more recent movies. He already had like red lensed regular sunglasses. Not even like goggles to kind of protect the whole thing, but just regular red sunglasses, like he was Daredevil, and somehow that was the holding back the lasers from his eyes. Didn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me. I'm like, this guy should not have been able to open his eyes at all until those goggles were made. And they would have had to have gone through so many iterations of goggles before they were like, oh, okay, this is going to contain the other dimension fire that's coming out of his eyes, or whatever is, you know what I mean? Like there's like his eyes are portals to another red laser dimension, something like that. Yeah, I kind of remember X-Men Evolution, but I was already like older by that point, not really watching cartoons like that. I think like Avatar the Airbender was probably like the most lit cartoon I was watching back then. That's still like a really good cartoon, either way. Like I'm like, yo, where's that super raw, hardcore Cyclops story? You know what I mean? That way he could finally get kind of like the social credit that's needed for him to be a badass that's on par with Wolverine, instead of just like, you know, the Boy Scout who's Wolverine's punching bag. You know what I mean? Like he could be the Boy Scout, but we need to see him go from being an orphan that lost his family, whose family ultimately ends up becoming like a space pirate dad and Havoc as a brother, and to the awakening of his powers, no way to contain them until they figure out a way to contain them. How do they contain them? And what kind of trouble would he drum up with the public eye, considering that's the whole X-Men thing, is how do human beings kind of accept mutants when these mutants are running around crazy out here. He doesn't even have to be a bad guy. He could be a good guy. He just can't open up his eyes, or he'll blow everything up that he sees. Like, he's not going to be accepted by the public or the people. So then that's going to create, like, a problem with him. And then, oh my god, this thing. So, yeah, it would just be interesting, like, to see him get, like, a little bit of hardcore comeuppance. You know, he believes his family's lost. Society hates him. He has, like, whatever sort of trouble thing of, like, when his powers awaken, he probably has, like, a body count. You know what I mean? Things like that. And he's, like, this kind of badass guy, but then meets Charles Xavier, helps him create, like, the team, ultimately becomes the leader. And it's because he kind of showed the most, like, promise or results or anything like that, you know what I mean? And then became the Boy Scout that we know him to be, or that everyone kind of, like, pins on him to be. But then we'll know who he is. We'll know he was, like, that he had to, like, build himself up to become the Boy Scout leader. And then he runs into Wolverine. You know what I mean? Or, you know what I mean? He builds the X-Men team, meets Jean Grey, they fall in love, and then he meets Wolverine. You know what I mean? And then that relationship develops. I think it would create an interesting dynamic where it's not just like, oh, he's a Boy Scout and Wolverine's, you know, the bad boy. And, you know what I mean? He has to, like, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, that whole thing. Yeah. Oh, give me 1 second. The Marvel movies were ultimately gonna, like, lean into, with the Guardians out there, and then they showed, like, the Sylvester Stallone character, like Michelle Yeoh. Like, they showed, like, I forget what that space comic book team was, but just the Guardians, just like the Sylvester Stallone, Michelle Yeoh team, Cyclops My bad. What was I talking about? I was still talking about Cyclops. What was I saying? Oh, right. So, from what I looked up, apparently he suffered a head injury when his parents pushed him out of a plane. Kept his eyes closed. Later, he started getting headaches. Red glasses, which helped him with his headache. Okay. Yeah, sorry. Sorry about that. As soon as the leader of the X-Men, his backstory should be more known. Like Wolverine had so many movies, yep, episodes explaining, yep. Well, that's exactly what I was just talking about with the low microphone. I'll just repeat what I said, kind of sum it up a bit. I was saying that that's where I thought the Marvel movies were gonna go. Since, you know what I mean, we know that they need to kind of pass the torch from the movies where they are to the movies where they're going, and we know that they need to set up the X-Men somehow, some way. You know what I mean, considering that Cyclops' dad is out there in space, and like I said, he's a space pirate. He's a part of a crew that's kind of like the Guardians of the Galaxy, kind of like the Ravagers, kind of like, you know what I mean. They gave us the Sylvester Stallone and Michelle Yeoh team, which was like just another Ravager crew, but we never got a movie with them. But they kind of represented something. Cyclops' dad is a space pirate that's like that. You know what I mean? He's a part of like this space crew that's out there doing space pirate stuff. And I thought that that was going to be the way to introduce Cyclops into that the Marvel universe, and then it would be through Cyclops that we would meet Charles Xavier. And then through Charles Xavier, we meet Magneto. And Charles and Cyclops would then start building the team. And like I was saying before, that's when we get the whole Cyclops backstory, you know, all the hardships, and then him like going through the hardships to becoming the Boy Scout and all that other stuff. Um, like I thought that would have been like a really cool direction to start with Cyclops since he's the leader, but start specifically with like his dad as one of these space pirate people with all these Guardians of the Galaxy movies and the introduction of the Sylvester Stallone, Michelle Yeoh crew. Like I thought that you know what I mean, you could lay like a breadcrumb trail of you know what I mean, space characters to lead up to Scott Summers' dad, who could then talk about his kid, who he probably thinks like died in the plane accident or something like that. And then like we go to the kid and we find out who the kid is, and then we're seeing him in school, and then boom, laser beams out his eyes. You know, tragedy. A whole school blows up because he doesn't know how to turn off the power or something like that. And then he can't open his eyes, and he's a big threat. It'd be all over the news. People would be like, "Oh my God, this kid blew up a," you know what I mean? Like something along those lines. You know, Charles Xavier finds him, and then you know what I mean, patches him up. They go through the whole trial and error of covering up his eyes so that way they're not shooting beams. And then as they're doing that, they kind of develop the first X-Men team. And as they develop the first X-Men team, they got to begin to set up the second X-Men team. Because the first one, I think, you know, famously had the whole Genosha uh, incident. So you know what I mean? Like you set up, just like Iron Man to Avengers, you set up Cyclops to the X-Men, to the Genosha event, to the second team of X-Men. And now you're developing a second team of X-Men just after, you know, within the Marvel movie kind of timeline, just after they're setting up the second Avengers. You know, just like they've been setting up the second Avengers as they have been doing. They could be setting up the second Avengers while they're telling the Cyclops to the X-Men story, to the Genosha event, to the second X-Men thing. And now you've established like a love between Cyclops and Jean Grey, and now Wolverine's in the picture. And then we get ourselves a new Wolverine. That's not a Hugh Jackman. Not that he's bad, but just that you know what I mean? And then we can actually get the Wolverine that was kind of like originally established as far as like not being the super badass that he is, but to be like this third wheel in Cyclops's relationship with Jean Grey. You know what I mean? Drama, 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 X-Men, 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 mutant, 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 politics, politics, politics. You know what I mean? And I mean, you just start picking off of comic books at that point. A newly appointed leader of the X-Men officially dealing with becoming a father and Cable and focusing more on his adulthood, Gene's son, than dealing with his origins. Right. And that's what I'm saying. That I think that's kind of like a big problem as far as like how Cyclops' story has been told. Because we're always getting already Cyclops. And I'm saying, had we gone through, had we told his story from the origins, which is an interesting origin as far as like, you know, plane crash, family dies, but family's actually not dead. Brother becomes Havoc, dad's a space pirate, and now here's Cyclops, and his powers awaken, and then, you know, trouble. I don't know, just thinking about it that way, I was like, man, Marvel's gonna kill it. Marvel's gonna crush this. And then we got what we got. Yeah, I can't believe I turned my mic down. Can't believe I don't do that often enough. I wasn't prepared. I just kept talking. But yeah, I can't believe I was saying all that with the volume on low. But I mean, I really thought or still think that that's the route that, you know, they had that opportunity. Now, I don't know about like the timeline as far as like Disney owning the rights and everything like that. But man, had they pitched that, had they not had the rights yet and pitched that as something that they wanted to do, you know, just like Universal gave them Spider-Man or Sony gave them Spider-Man licensing. Like they if they didn't own it already at that point, like they could have got licensing. You just got to tell like a good enough story. But yeah, like when I learned that about Cyclops, I was like, oh man, why do they always paint him out to be like some chump Boy Scout? You know what I mean? Some no persona, no backstory, no nothing. Kinda character. And then you always hear from like the comic book fans, like they're like, no, Cyclops is actually really cool, but they never like really explain like his whole backstory. they'll just kind of like talk about the already Cyclops versions of him. And it's like, by the time he's already Cyclops, he's already getting clowned by Wolverine. Like, you got it. And Wolverine is Wolverine, you know what I mean? He's Mr. History. He's Mr. Weapon X. And that whole slew of characters. He's been in Japan and has like a baby in Japan. And he's Mr. like all this stuff. All the Wolverine mythos. If you're gonna have like a Cyclops, you're gonna have a Wolverine. And if you're gonna make Cyclops like kind of, I don't know, for lack of a better word, worthy, I mean, I don't have any plans to watch it. I used to have Disney Plus. I don't anymore. I just can't afford it. So, I don't know if and when I'll ever see it. But, yeah, and that's the thing. They do depend on Wolverine to carry it a lot. Thanks to Hugh Jackman and, like, how badass Wolverine is as a character in the comics. You know what I mean? So Wolverine can carry the team, but they do rely on the Phoenix Saga a lot. And when you know, as you're saying, like, to rely on Wolverine and Phoenix so much, and you have that love triangle there, it's almost like disrespectful to not be able to put Cyclops on the level of Phoenix and Wolverine. Now, the whole point is, like, yeah, Wolverine's kind of untouchable. You know what I mean? Since he's so unkillable. He's like Deadpool with an attitude. And then you have Phoenix, who's kind of untouchable. She's like an intergalactic fire. like, you have like these two untouchable characters that are a part of this love triangle, and then you got this third guy. And he's just like literally a Boy Scout. Is so disrespectful. It's so disrespectful. You know what I mean? But if you set him up correctly, and you tell his backstory, we know who he is, he's super badass, he earned his position to become the leader of the X-Men, he's a Boy Scout because he has to be, because, you know what I mean, if we follow somewhere along the lines of what I'm talking about, because he has a bit of a dark past and a mysterious past and a crazy family story, and, you know, not only are they relying on the Phoenix Saga a lot, but they rely on Cable a lot too. And with Cable already being established in the Deadpool movies, it was kind of like a no-brainer. But Cable is directly linked to Cyclops. You know what I mean? All the pieces are there. All the pieces are there. You know, and I just don't know. I don't know what goes on in Hollywood, man. Might have something to do with too many cooks, though. Maybe Wolverine just resonated more with the people. Ha. Yeah. No, I mean, who doesn't like Wolverine? You know what I'm saying? Even if you don't like Wolverine, you can't deny him. Like his character, how it's been fleshed out. I mean, I don't even know the Wolverine history as far as like how he's been publicized, like how he started and where they go. I can imagine in the beginning. Like I remember he was like a Hulk villain in the beginning. Like his first introduction was on a Hulk comic book, and it was the Wolverine versus the Hulk, and that was the introduction to Wolverine. And I mean, going back to the movies, you still have the Hulk around. He's Smart Hulk now, and you can have Wolverine fighting him, and then Wolverine, you know what I mean? Like leaning into that, that could be Wolverine's introduction into the MCU, while you have Cyclops' introduction into the MCU through the whole space pirate thing, and then you know what I mean? The two of them meet, and Jean Grey's between them. You know what I mean? Dun dun dun. Like, something like that. But yeah, they don't. I don't know. I don't know. Like Wolverine is just so sellable just because he's he's angry and he has claws and he can regenerate so well that he can't die. Like one of the few. I might only have like a couple of Wolverine oh no, I got three. Okay, that I can like name off top. I got like three Wolverine comics and graphic novels. One of them is the Civil War Wolverine, and it was the comic storyline of Civil War, but Wolverine had his own like kind of one-shot story within all that mess, and it kind of like dealt with Nitro, who's a mutant that can kind of like create explosions like bombs. So Nitro was going around blowing up stuff, so Wolverine was investigating it as an X-Men, and then you know what I mean. It goes into the whole story, this, that, and the other. And there is one point when he confronts Nitro, and Nitro blows up point blank in front of Wolverine, and it's that famous image of like just the adamantium skeleton standing there, claws out, screaming in fire. Like that was that story. He regenerated from that, from being completely eviscerated. You know what I mean? Make every excuse in the world. Oh, one cell was still there, so that one cell regenerated. Still, you know. So it's easy to make Wolverine cool. Jean Grey, you know what I mean? Like even Dark Phoenix aside, she's a pretty cool character. You know what I mean? If you tell her right. Um, but definitely the Phoenix stuff makes her more interesting, of course. So yeah, I mean, you got these super cool characters. You need to make Cyclops on par with them. I just feel like they need to do that. Him and Jean are pregnant with Nathan. Cyclops is dealing with being the leader. Oh yeah. Oh, okay. So they got the Professor X that's on the other planet that's getting married to the the hot chick with the headdress in the silver outfit, something like that, at a different planet. Yeah. Oh, they went the other route. They went the Mr. Sinister route. They're two genes, and Scott is like dealing with both of them. Tight, tight. See, I like that. Give Cyclops a harem. Clone Jean decides to become her own person. Okay. Doing what the family trying to say. And see, this is his family that he creates. I think the family that he comes from is just as interesting. There's just less history there. Um, and that's what I mean as far as like the events to lead up to building the Cyclops that we know. Like I think that's something that the MCU could do. At least that's what I thought. I mean, how many years ago was Endgame? You know what I mean? So like that's what I was thinking like 5 years ago, but it's been 5 years since, and I certainly don't feel that way anymore. Some other events happen, blah 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 blah. That guy trying to save the future, but in the end they get sucked into the future with like Cable leading the group. And like 12, and that's what the second season will cover. Oh wow, so they're gonna have a second season. So yeah, they do depend on Cable to help Cyclops' story. And that's the thing, like, not to say that Cable isn't interesting. He's obviously interesting, but I think they need to let Cyclops stand on his own. You know what I mean? As far as like generating interest. There's a potential I could see the movie in my head. Well, now you know. Now you know where I'm coming from. I don't know when I learned about Scott's family, but when I learned about that, which I want to say was like, well before 5 years ago, I was like, I was like, where's all this coming from? Like you find out it was like from comics in like the 90s or the 80s. Like who knows? Like you know what I mean? Like I forget when in the comics they dove into Scott's backstory, but it was like that's all been there. So it's crazy that they even came up with the live action movie and it just never gets brought up. And then they do the second set of trilogy movies, or it was probably quadrilogy, I don't know. And still not a mention of it. No, I can see the whole thing, man. That's what it is. It's Oh, but like back to our original point about like race swapping characters. Yeah, I guess you could just switch up Cyclops, make him whatever you wanted, and same goes with the rest of his family. You know what I mean? And like Cable, same thing. He does get treated like a side character. You know, it's like I think it would be extremely interesting to see a Boy Scout character, but like know that internally inside what's going on inside the mind of that Boy Scout character, especially when he has like Wolverine trying to punk him, is like, do you know who I am? Like I got a really cool Jay Lee um but there's a comic book series, a Wolverine comic book series, and Jay Lee, one of the artists that I really like, he did a whole series of covers for them of like Wolverine and the Wolverine mythos and stuff like that. And on one of the covers, it was Cyclops blasting Wolverine, and it's a really beautiful cover. It's essentially, well, it's I mean, I'm obviously not going to do it any justice, but it's a beautiful cover because of the angle of perspective. And I forget exactly how it goes, but you got, it's a comic book, and it's got like Wolverine written at the top, and you just got like Cyclops, who's like big mad, and he's working up the dial on his thing, on his little, on his pew pew, and you got like super big mad Cyclops, right? But he went like full. He just went full charge on Wolverine, so his beam is like blasting like crazy. You know what I mean, like that. And Wolverine is just like this like incineration, who's kind of like something like this, like getting blown back, and he's like upside down or something, and he's just like enveloped it completely enveloped like some Dragon Ball Z stuff. You know what I mean? Just completely enveloped in the red laser, and it's like one of the things. It's one of my favorite covers. You know what I mean? Like it's that. you got Scott Summers just going full charge on Wolverine over here, and Wolverine's just like jacked up, like oh, like just getting incinerated by the laser beam. And yeah, it. I'm like, where's that Cyclops? I'm like, who is that? That ain't the Cyclops I know. The Cyclops I've been learned to know, like, doesn't even get mad. He just gets annoyed. You know what I mean? Or like slightly like disgruntled. But I'm like, if we got set up the scenario of building off the X-Men, same way the Avengers built off of Iron Man, you build the X-Men off of a Cyclops. And you go through the adventure that I was talking about, and the backstory on the family and everything like that, and who he is, and the awakening of the powers, the meeting of Charles Xavier, And I think that would be interesting too, meeting Charles Xavier through Cyclops. So he is the mentor figure instead of, you know what I mean, like how we were introduced to Xavier and then the X-Men. So then it makes Xavier like a main character in the movies, as you know what I mean, such a prolific figure. Where if we're meeting him through the eyes of Cyclops, especially if he just like awakened his powers and created like crazy devastation, probably has like a few bodies and the politics and people complaining about him and everything like that. Like, I think you'd get like an interesting perspective on Xavier as well, where he's, you know what I mean, he's not a main character that we get to like kind of understand him really. He's just like this kind of like weird bald guy who's coming in and like hey man, I'll help you out, but the X-Men don't exist, so it's like, who are you? What are you talking about? And he's like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like the foundations and the building blocks to the X-Men, beginning with like Xavier and maybe Cyclops, maybe Xavier already has like a student or two, you know what I mean? Things like that. Yeah, the whole series, the whole J. Lee comic book, Wolverine comic book series. This focus. Like it's a really good cover, but I'm always like, yo, like I don't recognize that Cyclops. But I think it was like a genius thing to draw because Wolverine would be the character that Cyclops could just go ham on and completely eviscerate him just like Nitro did in Civil War comic book, and Wolverine would still just come back. Here we go. So yeah, I'd like to see Cyclops like stop being a side character and start being the still let him be the Boy Scout, but let him be the leader that he needs to be for people to still like accept him as the leader, even with like a Wolverine figure around punking him constantly, you know. Like I think the way that his character's been treated is he's just the leader because he's the leader, but there's never any like defining moment where we see everyone accept him be the leader. Because why would he be the leader? You got Jean Grey on the team. I mean, yeah, I guess maybe her powers weren't like completely awakened. You got Beast on the team. You know what I mean? Like he's extra smart and probably older than them on average. And then I think Iceman was another original. Like why wasn't Iceman the leader instead of Cyclops? Like what's he bringing to the table? Like what's Cyclops bringing to the table that Iceman wasn't at the time? You know what I mean? Just being young mutants, kind of starting off getting their first missions and run until they run into Magneto and Sentinels and things like that. Mm. Is it 440? It is 440 in the mall. Yeah. Yeah, I ain't never talked about stuff like this neither. I just like think about it and I'm like, oh, that's a really cool idea. I should try to like fix it into my story and then tell my story that has not Cyclops and not Wolverine and not Jean Grey and not Phoenix in it. You know what I mean? You know, and not Space Pirate Dad. and not Cable. You know? But I'd be like, yo, I got a good idea. I'm gonna throw that into my story. and, and keep letting Universal and Disney punk Cyclops. While I go ahead and, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's cool. It's cool. We could, talk about that. I mean, remember we started this thing with talking about, oh yeah, because you were watching the new Batman cartoon, and they kind of like, changed some things around. It's always annoying when they change things around, but you're younger than me, so you're going through the same things that everyone older than you was going through, and they're like, man, it was better. It was better back in our day, or it was better, when the character was like this or the character was like that before they changed them when it came to this new thing that they're doing. It's just the way of the world. Maybe I got the comic wrong. Maybe it was a different angle. I keep trying to think if it was a different angle. Maybe not. Maybe I wonder if I could find it. I wonder if I could find that comic book cover, because I kind of want to look at it now. Well, yeah, that's awesome. It's awesome that you'd read it. It means a lot to me. You know what I mean? Like, I think about these great ideas, and then it's like, okay, I gotta, you know what I mean? Hopefully try to implement things like that into my story. It's just difficult because I'm not working with the history that the comic book industry has and characters in the comic book industry have. It's like I'm making up my own characters. So it's a little bit difficult to try to know the ins and the outs. Like, I have everything written, and just as I'm like realizing things as I'm working on them, and I'm like, oh, this works out, or every now and then I'm like, ooh, this kind of doesn't work out, I need to figure this out. It's a lot easier to do it when you're playing with other people's characters, because their characters already have established things, so it's just a lot easier. But give me a second, because now I'm kind of in the mood to try to find. I wonder if I could find that comic. I wonder if it's right there, or if it's like boxed up somewhere. Let me see if it's right there. Give me a second. 'Cause, yeah, I want to see this again. Hold up. Yeah, I got it here. I just need to find it. Look at that one. Alright. So, get ready for this, because I'm going to have to go through some things to find it, because I forget which one it is. So, check this out. I might need to back the camera up for this one just a little bit. So famously, it's funny, I have these two comics in the front. Jay Lee, one of my favorite artists that I found early on in, like, when I started getting into comics, like late in my life, you know, all things considered. Jay Lee was one of the first, like, illustrators that I saw that I was like, whoa, you know what I mean? Like, he has a style that's different from like your typical comic book style. So one of the favorite things that he's worked on, he did like 4 covers for Deadpool Pulp. So this is his series. I actually have a signed, like, convention version of this image, but I think it's Deadpool with a full mask instead of this illustration where he kind of like stylized his costume a bit, where you can kind of see like he has like the open face here. He made a convention print with the full mask, and I met Jay Lee, super cool, real quick, and then yeah, I got that signed from him. It's one of my favorites. But this has always been one of my favorite things. We did a few covers for Deadpool Pulp, so this is just another one. The other 2 are inside here somewhere. But one of the coolest Deadpools, right? Like, I'm trying to get those things framed, like the actual comic books, just thrown up into a frame. That's the plan with them, at least. But then he also, Jay Lee, I think in the 90s, like, he kind of got his big break doing what are they called? Not the Invincibles. Whatever the people are that are on the moon. I think with the voice guy and the hair girl, and there was a live action series about it in recent years. It didn't go so well. They all live on the moon, and I think they're mutants, but they're not mutants. Not the Invincibles. The Invincibles. I might be getting them confused with the Incredibles, the movies, with Mr. Incredible and Mrs. Incredible, I think. I don't know. But he was working on those comics, on those characters. And he did a series of Wolverine covers, and he's the guy who famously did this one. I didn't see the Deadpool Wolverine movie, but I remember them showing a scene where, like, Deadpool was like taking knives. He probably like stabbed Wolverine a few times. Oh man, we're not focusing. I wonder if I can do something about that. Hold on. See if I can get this camera right. Get this light kind of like in a better position that's less glary. Either way, you can see the picture. He's the artist who worked on this picture. And did a bunch of them. I'm not going to go through all of them. But I definitely want to find that one with Cyclops, because I don't even think I'm remembering it right. See, like, here's another set of covers that he did. And check this out. It's Sabretooth carrying them. And then you got all these characters, and Jay Lee just has this interesting style where he stylizes all the characters. You know what I mean? So you got Sabretooth, Omega Red, and then like whoever these characters are, it's probably like Lady Deathstrike over here or something like that. Stuff like that. But you got Wolverine looking like Conan with a bit of samurai armor. It's like super cool, right? Let's see if it's in here. Here it is. Okay, I kind of remembered it, right? So you got Angry Cyclops, and I guess this is his later design. And then, like, just bold red, you know what I mean, laser beam, and just Wolverine getting fricasseed over here. Oh, they even played with the title. I never noticed that before. Where the title's not just upright, but the letters are actually warped to kind of go with the perspective of the laser. Oh, dude. And it's even like got the motion blur on it. I never noticed that before. Dude. But yeah. See, like, I'm like, who's this Cyclops? I don't know this Cyclops. I don't know the Cyclops that's just like, you know what, I'm just taking out Wolverine. Screw it. He'll come back. You know what I mean? The love triangle, the pent-up frustration of who he must have been growing up, the creation of the X-Men. You know what I mean? Becoming a Boy Scout, but just like having this anger inside. Wolverine uses him as a punching bag. He could use Wolverine as a punching bag right back. Oh man. But yeah, I was always like, after seeing this, and I got these not even because I was a Wolverine fan, but because I'm a Jay Lee fan. You know what I mean? That's why I got these things. I'm just like, yo, that's probably the coolest Cyclops I've ever seen. I'm kind of like, yo, where's that Cyclops? But it doesn't sound like that's him in the X-Men 97 and all that stuff either. The Eternals. Yes. Alright, is it the Eternals? Yeah, see how like the cover is here and how the cover was there? Had the motion blur and the perspective changed on it. Can't believe I never noticed that before. Since I got him out, you know, here's another cover that he did. It's Wolverine and Mystique. I love it because he's got the claws out, she has the knife out, but you know what I mean? So it's kind of like that whole, you could trust me, you can't trust me sort of situation. I drew a picture similar to that one with a crossover of Killer Instinct, Saberwolf, and Mortal Kombat Cyrax, where they're kind of like shaking hands, but then like Saberwolf has the claws out behind him, and Cyrax from Mortal Kombat is holding like one of his bombs behind his back. Like I think that's kind of like where I almost got the idea. I'm sure it's like, you know what I mean. And then here's another obscure or another cover where I don't know who these characters are. Like I said, Jay Lee kind of stylizes all his heroes, which I love. You know what I mean? I got Jay Lee's work on the Batman Superman comics, where it's like the Batman Superman team up comics back in the New 52. He did some of the comic pages, but he mostly worked on the covers there before another artist took over the pages. Interesting story and storyline and all that stuff, but it was interesting to see his stylized across you know, the Batman and Gotham, because he has like this really kind of wet ink style and this heavy ink style. To see that sort of detail and work on Gotham's Victorian setting, you know what I mean? It was interesting. It was even interesting to see him work on Superman, because Superman's such a clean Boy Scout, bright daylight character that the heavy inks didn't work. Or, I mean, you could draw Superman however you want, but like how he's typically envisioned is like, you know what I mean? Like, sky is blue, you know, the sun is out, everything is all good, farmer's boy, you know what I mean? Superman, so there's never really like, Superman never really has that dark moment. I mean, they keep telling these stories nowadays of like a bad Superman, so I guess it's more so these days, but to see Jay Lee's style on the bright character, especially when he's being written in the Superman Batman combo, where, you know, obviously Batman represents like the darker stuff, so he can sit there and draw Batman all extra dark. So to balance that out, he'll draw Superman extra light. And to see Jay Lee's style, where he's not throwing like heavy inks on Superman, it's super interesting. I mean, I got that right over there also. But yeah, I think if I'm remembering this correctly, I got Jay Lee. I think he, you know, as an artist, he first got my attention from his work with Stephen King. He worked on a series called The Dark Tower, I think, something like that. And The Dark Tower had a movie that came out maybe 10 years ago, something like that, more or less, give or take. It had Idris Elba was the main character, and Matthew McConaughey was the main bad guy in the movie. The movie doesn't stand up to, I guess, the original Stephen King novel, but I got the graphic novels, and I think that was another one that I caught in the beginning. Just like when I first started buying comics, I ran into Spawn because Spawn was the only character I knew, and because I was like first time in a comic book store, I didn't know what to buy, even though I knew like Batman was popular, X-Men was popular. Like, it was like I didn't know what to get into, because like comics are always in the middle of something, you know what I mean? So it's like, where do I start? So I just started with a Spawn comic book, because I figured, like, who cares if I don't know the story? I like the character. And then that's when I ran into Greg Capullo's art. And then because I was into video games and I was into Street Fighter, I got the Udon comics of Street Fighter, and then that's when I ran into all the Udon comics art or artists, you know, back in the heyday when they were all really I want to like get the stripes in here. That's interesting. I didn't expect that. But yeah, Jay Lee's the man, yo. I met the guy real quick because I was working at a convention, but because I'm by myself, when I do those things, I couldn't like step away from my booth in Artist Alley for like too long. Like I'm like trying to make money, so it was like, but you know, I met a few of my favorite artists there, and I just have to like kind of book it to their desk, and you know what I mean, take the time it takes to wait in line for them, and then buy something, anything, and you know what I mean, get them to sign it. And yeah, I was super happy when I saw that he had that Deadpool cover. So you know what I mean, I was just like, give me that one. Boom, signed it, thank you, ran. So I'm a big fan, bye. And then it wasn't until later that I was like, wait a second, this is different from the cover, because the cover he has his face showing, and then in the signed picture that I have from him, you know what I mean, he has like the full mask. And I was like, oh, I never saw it like this. I was like, he must have had to have changed it up for the convention circuit. But it's literally the same picture, same stylized outfit and everything like that. Yeah, man, Jay Lee's art definitely inspired me a whole bunch in the beginning, just like I always talk about with the Arkham Asylum graphic novel, how the artwork in that one kind of made me realize that comic books didn't need to be that comic book style that I didn't have back then. Really gave me hope to work on things. Jay Lee was another one of those artists, same thing, where I saw his style and I was like, this isn't comic book style, it's ink and it's digital color. And then, you know what I mean, you get the graphic novels, you get to actually see his pencils and stuff like that, and you're like, oh my god, so good, so good. He's just another one of those artists that made me feel like, oh, you can kind of just draw in any style, and you know what I mean, as long as you know how to kind of tell a story visually, then you know what I mean, then you're pretty much good to go on you know what I mean, working on a comic book. Which is like a relief, you know what I mean? It was like a load off my chest to be like, yo, I don't have to draw like that necessarily. I mean, I guess if I wanted to do things, get into the industry appropriately and reach them out, which I did try to do and just didn't get in, which is fine. But you know, that was just another thing that help inspire me to be like, you know what? I'll just have to do my own thing. You know what I mean? Just have to do my own thing, my own style, and you know, realize that it's okay. Dang, I thought I was gonna end up drawing like a page and a half of just cats standing around. I might have to come back tomorrow and continue this, just so I can kind of get some muscle memory on cat anatomy. So that way when I go back to working on my side piece sketchbook throughout the week, I kind of have like a little bit of this under my belt. But yeah, ended up with a pretty decent conversation. What are we playing right now? Dang, we still on here. That's what's up. I don't recognize the last couple of songs. Yeah, thanks. Like like I said, I was writing, and then I kind of just hit a spot where I was like, don't really feel like I'm gonna get much more done writing. And I'm already tired. Like I was already tired by the time I started, which was like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I was already pretty tired, but yeah, I was like, you know what, man, if I just kind of draw a little bit of nothing, a little bit of a cat study, just get to look at pictures and draw them, like that's like the easiest thing. It almost requires like no brain power. So I was like, for that. But yeah, it's already past 5 a.m., so I might just finish off this square and call it a night, which, may not be as soon as you think. You know, we talk about another thing. But since, we were talking about Batman in the beginning, and it's like I was saying before I jumped into the X-Men stuff, or jumped into the Cyclops stuff at least. Like Batman Beyond, that is one of my favorite things, because It's not like I watched the cartoon so much that I have it like memorized or anything like that, but it was always just so cool. Like Batman was always so cool, and then the story of like this really really old Batman who then trains like this new kid, and then all the you know whatever stuff, and turns out to be like one of his kids, or has his DNA, the Bruce Wayne DNA in him somehow, some way, like however that ended up working out. That, but like just the Batman Beyond thing where it's a future Gotham. So Gotham is still the grimy, gritty Gotham. I've been talking about like the new movie in the Penguin series, how that Gotham is kind of like the best Gotham I've ever seen. It's like right on par with the animated series. The only thing I would need to see is like a blimp or half a dozen blimps like in the sky with GCPD written across them, and that would probably complete the Gotham setting for me in that world. But Batman Beyond taking place in Gotham, but like it's futuristic. So you have like this Victorian futuristic sort of thing. I mean, I guess it's a lot like the Dark Tower, where you have the Western setting, but with like sorcery involved, where it's like it's like a crazy combination of two things coming together, of that fantasy that fantasy magic mixed in with a Western is like crazy to me. Same thing with Batman Beyond. You have this gothic old gothic city that's just like has like neo techno painted all over it, and gene splicing, and people are like becoming half animals and things like that. And then like all of the rogues kind of like get their own, like, have developed into a lifestyle within the city. So it's not just like the Batman Rogues Gallery, but it's like the offspring of the rogues, and like how that's permeated throughout this neo Vic Gotham, gothic Gotham. like like all of that without any sort of story in particular. You know what I mean? The only thing I know about the story is like the movie. They gave us the movie where the Joker returns. Like, okay, you know what I mean? Like that's you know what I mean? Like, okay. But the only thing I know is like Terry McGinnis, old Bruce Wayne, Ace the dog, and Terry's girlfriend, and then Terry's girlfriend's friend. Like that's all I really know about it. Everything else is just like fantastic to me. And that's what I mean, like that future mixed in with the past, and the past being everything that we understand about the Batman mythos. You know what I mean? Kind of post Dark Knight. Like what I like to think about. Yeah, that picture's too cute. I don't know if I can pull it up. Stop sliding. Yeah, so something that I always think about. Dang, I kind of forgot what I was gonna say. Let's focus. There we go. Oh, that's what I was gonna say. So what I like to think about is, since this is like Batman in the future, I like to think that the Bat family already exists, and that you wouldn't just be dealing with an old Bruce Wayne, but you'd also be dealing with an old Dick Grayson, or an old Nightwing, where the Joker Returns dealt with spoiler alert to a 20-year-old movie. Um, the Joker Returns dealt with like the whole genetic thing of Joker implanting some of his DNA into Robin, and Robin in his old age, the Dick Grayson Robin, in his old age would periodically turn into the Joker, but then he would turn back into Robin. It was very, I guess, structurally very similar to Berserk with Griffin, the reborn Griffin, um, turning into the Moon Kid, the Moon Child, whatever they call him, and then the Moon Child turning back into Griffin, like on during full moons or something like that, like something similar like that with Dick Grayson and the Joker. Which I don't know. I don't know about that. But I like to think like the Bat family has like been around for a hot minute, and that Terry McGinnis would have to like kind of not necessarily contend with them, but like they would be out there, and he would have to do his thing. With the whole Bat family out there. And then, like I was saying, with like Lucius Fox's son, who's like this new, a part of the Bat family now. He's like this new thing. He kind of has the whole technology moniker. So it's kind of interesting that you have Batman Beyond, which is a more technologically advanced bat suit, and then you have Lucius Fox's kid, which is he operates a more technologically advanced bat suit. And one is black and blue and the other one's black and red. Like that's an interesting dynamic. I don't know how much like the Batman Beyond mythos like dives into all that stuff. But that's what I like to think about when I think about Batman Beyond. It's just like all the past stuff, all the future stuff, and then just all the science fiction that you can kind of throw in there. Like one of my favorite things to think about when it just comes to Batman. I mean, I guess we have like the Long Halloween and stuff like that, but I don't feel like we necessarily really have um like if I were to ever work on a Batman story, I would really love to work on one that deals with Batman and the monsters. Solomon Grundy, Man Bat, um, Killer Croc, like the monsters, not the humanoid monsters, but Mr. Freeze, you know what I mean? Like the monsters. Kind of like, the Long Halloween kind of did, but the Long Halloween still kept like, the mob involved and some of the more humanoid characters like Catwoman and Scarecrow, who's still pretty humanoid, you know what I mean? Still like pretty much a person. Like I would love to just do a story that's just all monsters. And with the whole gene splicing thing and the futuristic setting and all that stuff, I think there's like an interesting opportunity to like really tell some like really interesting stories. So like I would always want to tell the Batman story with all the monster characters. And I kind of feel the same way about Batman Beyond. like Batman Beyond, I would probably just want to dive into that. And like I said, the Batman Rogues Gallery kind of went from being just singular characters to like entire gangs. So now the Mafia is really no longer the Mafia. The Mafia would be like the old Rogues Gallery, and how those, just like the Bat family, aged and got old. That old Rogues Gallery would have aged and got old, but would have developed into something new. Like Clayface is one of my favorite bad guys, period. And for no reason, you know what I mean? Probably just from the animated series. Like Clayface is like one of my favorites for no reason. He's just up there instantly. Like what happens to Clayface in the long run. Yeah, so like in my head, I'm like, yeah, I may never be able to get to work on like a Batman property, but I'd like to think that I have a better chance with getting like a Batman Beyond property and be able to tell a story in there. Like I would love to do that. But you know. Again, just like really cool ideas where I'm like, I'll probably end up implementing them into my own story before I even figure out how to get the opportunity to ask if I could work on those sort of properties officially. And you know, while we're on the subject, make Terry McGinnis black. You know what I'm saying? Why not? Since we're talking about it. superhero, so much so that he gets his own comic book line, and you know what I mean. Within the DC Comics world, he's kind of respected as the first sidekick, but also gets, becomes a superhero. Like his character is something great and unique. And having to deal with Bruce and all that stuff, having worked with Batman, the greatest detective, you know what I mean, all that stuff, like to just be relegated to like the the Joker kind of moon boys him or whatever it is, and he kind of gets out of superheroing altogether. Not saying that's impossible, but with the Teen Titans and all the superheroes and all the sidekicks that end up becoming older superheroes, and you know what I mean, by the time you're that far into the future, how many of them have passed, things like that. Like that Batman Beyond world could just be something great. Superboy growing up. What was always cool about the Superman comics is they can kind of jump out into space and deal with the alien stuff a whole lot more. I imagine by the time you're that far into the future, you know what I mean? The future, or the alien stuff is probably on like at an all-time high, where Superman is like out in space. Very similar to everything I always talk about with Dragon Ball Z. How I always wish by the time the Cell Saga ended, when I was a kid, you know what I mean? When the Cell Saga ended, um, I always thought Gohan was gonna take up the mantle that Goku left behind, because Goku had passed and he was in like fighting in tournaments in outer space and stuff, and he had already died once, been wished back once, maybe even twice at that point, and possibly. So it was like okay, Goku's not returning to life no more. He can continue fighting in the afterlife out in outer space and all the tournaments in the world and all that other stuff, and take on galaxy threats rather than Earth threats. It's just like that. You know what I mean? I feel like that's like where the Superman mythos could lead to. But Terry McGinnis is growing up in that world where Metropolis is still right there, Superboy is there. You know, I don't know enough about the Superman mythos to, comment more, but you kind of see what I'm saying. I just feel like the Batman Beyond stuff is, I'm pretty unfamiliar with it. It's probably already all been tapped into. Everything I'm saying has probably already been done. Honestly. Barbara was still working. Oh, right. Was she, I think she was basically like mad old and the commissioner or something like that. And that's always like an interesting thing, to like Barbara's character. I've heard so many things about it, like as far as her becoming Oracle, and then I just saw like a YouTube short recently where it was like a quick breakdown of Barbara getting like therapy treatments or whatever to get her out of the wheelchair so she could walk again, which is right in line with the whole future technology, all that stuff. Yeah, I think I kind of remember Barbara Gordon in the Batman Beyond stuff. But that's what I mean. You know what I mean? Like there's the whole Bat family. Depending on the universe, you could have, Huntress there, who's like the daughter of Catwoman and Bruce Wayne, or Catwoman and Batman. You know what I mean? But I think that's like an offshoot universe. But by that point, you know what I mean? The whole Flashpoint would have taken place, and uh, Crisis on Infinite Earths would have taken place, and all that stuff would have happened already. You could have Huntress there. Screw it. Man, I really gotta. That's another thing I gotta do is just look up like cat faces and see how cat faces like really work. You know what I mean? Maybe that's something that I do for tomorrow's stream. I mean, I think I could just keep working on the comic book pages. I didn't tonight just because I came in so late. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't sure if I was gonna be here tonight or not. And I know I kind of wasn't art streaming almost all week also. You know what I mean? But hey man, you joined me again. So much appreciated. But yeah, I got some cat studies down. Oh yeah, my really poorly rendered. How did he look? I didn't get the pose down right, did I? No, I definitely didn't. See, you can see how the title looks on all the covers, and then on this one they make it special. Yeah, I almost got the pose right. It was similar-ish. Huh. Oh, what's today? But yeah, came in late, came in for a short stream. Had some good conversations about Batman, X-Men, Batman Beyond. Kind of hit all the, you know what I mean? For a short stream, it was pretty loaded. It's awesome. It's kind of like what I look forward to, doing these things. Yeah, yeah. And I'll be back tomorrow. I mean, I've been coming in late on Sundays just because I'm watching the Penguin show, you know? So I'm still watching it. I mean, I stopped doing the breakdowns, but I mean, episode 3, didn't really enjoy it. It was good. I just didn't like it. You know, I didn't like what happened with the kid character. And then episode 4, loved it just because it focused on the chick with the big old eyes. You know what I mean? And then oh yeah, they showed episode 5 last week, where they kind of jumped back in to now what, and TV drama. So, but either way, so yeah, I'll be back on tomorrow after the Penguin airs, and then yeah, we'll maybe just keep doing some cat stuff. Like I said, just keep drawing these cat things. I'm kind of enjoying it, kind of learning and picking up a few things, but I definitely need to like work on the cat faces and really understand how the facial structure really goes, because I'm either just drawing them with really big eyes or really sad eyes, and I'm like, they don't. You can draw anything and make anything look cool, but You know what I mean? I'd rather kind of be a little bit more derivative to how a cat really looks, you know? So anyway, thanks for watching. Thank you for stopping by, Pixel. Everybody else, thank you for watching. I'm G Mr. Drew. It's at G Mr. Drew on all socials. Follow, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. gmrdrew.art, the website. Link is in the bio. Check it out. And yeah, links to everywhere there. Merch stores, Patreon, support your boy. And then yeah, a whole bunch of other things. Love y'all. Peace.